Hey everyone, and welcome to our latest explainer, especially to all you freshers out there getting ready to step into the clinical research industry. You are absolutely in the right place. Today, we're mastering some essential clinical trial terminology, but we're doing it with a razor-sharp focus on literally the most critical aspect of the entire job, which is patient safety. By the end of this explainer, you're going to have the exact vocabulary you need to confidently ace your next industry interview. Let's jump right in. So, we've organized this explainer into 5 core safety pillars. This is our agenda. 1. Clinical trial safety fundamentals. 2. Identifying the warning signs. 3. The independent watchdogs. 4. Rules, protocols, and compliance. And 5. Protecting trial participants. All right, let's start right at the top with Section 1, Clinical Trial Safety Fundamentals. This is the absolute bedrock. Okay, so if an interviewer ever asks you about the overarching standard of our field, you point them straight to Good Clinical Practice, or GCP. GCP is basically the ultimate rulebook for designing, conducting, recording, and reporting any study involving human subjects. Every single step of the trial data has to follow this standard. Honestly, if you don't have GCP, you don't have safety, and, well, you definitely don't have reliable data. Keep this term front and center in your mind. Moving right along to Section 2, identifying the warning signs. Now, interviewers absolutely love to test your knowledge on what happens when things go wrong. So here's a classic interview question that is almost guaranteed to come up. What is the exact difference between an adverse event and an adverse drug reaction? They sound super similar, right? But medically and legally, they are entirely different. The absolute differentiator here is the relationship to the treatment itself. An adverse event, or AE, is any untoward or unexpected medical occurrence during treatment, but, and this is key, it doesn't necessarily have a causal relationship with the drug. Like maybe the patient caught a cold or tripped and fell. That's an AE. But an adverse drug reaction, an ADR, refers to noxious or harmful changes that are specifically suspected to be due to the drug itself. So your key word for an ADR is suspected causation, whereas an AE is just a random occurrence without that guaranteed causal link. You also really need to know the escalation points. A serious adverse event is a special, much more severe category of an adverse event. When you define this in an interview, be crystal clear. It includes severe, catastrophic outcomes, like the death of a participant, or any cases of birth defects resulting from the trial. It's essentially the highest level red alert. And this next definition brilliantly illustrates the kind of nuance you need for these interviews. The unexpected adverse drug reaction. This is an adverse reaction whose nature, severity, specificity, or outcome just isn't consistent with the description in the local product labeling. You know, if a drug is known to cause mild headaches, but suddenly a patient gets severe migraines, well, that severity makes it unexpected because it completely defies the label. Let's move over to Section 3, the independent watchdogs, looking at the chain of command that monitors all these warning signs. Think of this table as your go-to hierarchy guide for the interview. First up, the sponsor. This is the individual or institute that takes the responsibility for initiation, management, and financing of the clinical trial. Basically, they foot the bill and own it. Then you have the investigator, who has to be incredibly diligent throughout the conduct of the trial, from designing the protocol all the way to the conclusion of the study. And finally, monitoring. A monitor is the person who warns of faults, informs of duty, or gives advice. They're usually someone from the project team who acts as that active, on-the-ground watchdog. Now, right above the immediate project team, you have the IDMC, which is the Independent Data Monitoring Committee. This is a very powerful, independent group that assesses the progress, safety, and efficacy of the clinical trial. And just look at the power they hold. They can actually approach the sponsor to advise whether to continue, stop, or modify the trials altogether. If safety is compromised, the IDMC pulls the alarm. Please don't get tripped up between these two during your interview. Both the Institutional Review Board, or IRB, and the Independent Ethic Committee, the IEC, act as gatekeepers. The IRB is the body which reviews and gives approval to the actual documents. The IEC, on the other hand, is heavily focused on the humans. They review and approve the trial to ensure the rights, safety, and well-being of the human subjects. They are both absolutely vital for greenlighting safe research. Since safety relies on strict adherence to the rules, let's jump into Section 4, Rules, Protocols, and Compliance. Every safety measure starts with the protocol. These are the documents which contain the objectives, design, methodology, statistical consideration, and organization of the trial. Crucially, the protocol usually gives the scientific rationale, meaning it provides the exact reason why the trial is justified based on medical literature. It's basically the master blueprint that the investigator has to strictly follow. Here is another incredibly common trap for freshers: confusing quality assurance and quality control. Interviewers really want to know if you understand the difference between planning for safety and actively checking for it. Quality assurance, or QA, represents all the systematic, planned efforts to ensure the trial is performed in compliance with GCP. It's the overarching strategy. Quality control, or QC, refers to the specific activities performed under that QA umbrella to ensure whether those trial activities have actually been fulfilled. So QA is the big plan you make, and QC is the specific action of checking that plan. And to ensure both QA and QC are actually met, we rely heavily on SOPs, or standard operating procedures. Notice the focus here: detailed, written, and uniformity of performance. Think of an SOP like a strict baking recipe. If everyone doesn't use the exact same measurements, the cake is totally ruined. But when everyone follows the SOP exactly, safety risks drop dramatically. Finally, let's turn to Section 5, Protecting Trial Participants. This is the heart and soul of clinical trial ethics. Look, a trial is quite literally nothing without its subjects. A subject is simply the person enrolled in the trial. We are ethically mandated to protect their well-being, which encompasses both their physical and mental health. We also fiercely protect their confidentiality, keeping their info totally private. We do this practically through a subject identification code, which replaces their name with a secure code so their true identity is never exposed to the wider team. Now, you also must explicitly understand the concept of vulnerable subjects. Nailing this in an interview shows you truly get medical ethics. Vulnerable subjects are those who require special support, care, and protection during the trial. This includes demographics like children, pregnant women, and cognitively impaired persons. The rules protecting these groups are incredibly strict, as they should be. All of this participant protection culminates in the informed consent process. And please remember, this isn't just a piece of paper getting signed. It is a full process by which a subject voluntarily confirms their willingness to participate. They can only do this after being informed of all aspects of the trial that are relevant to their decision. It is the ultimate safeguard of human rights in research. By systematically breaking down this glossary word by word, you've just built a rock-solid foundation. You aren't just memorizing definitions here. You are understanding exactly how safety, oversight, and protocols drive the entire clinical research industry. So, I want to leave you with a scenario to really test your new knowledge before you step into that interview room. If a monitor spots an unexpected adverse drug reaction, what exact steps must the sponsor, the IEC, and the investigator take to protect a vulnerable subject? Think about how all these watchdogs interconnect, their roles and protocols in a real emergency. Master that mental puzzle, and you will ace any interview. Thanks so much for joining us for this explainer. Keep reviewing these concepts, and good luck out there.